The moment Karen uttered those words, "I don't trust this court," the entire courtroom fell into a deadly silence that could cut glass. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed to laser points as she slowly reached for a manila folder sitting directly in front of her, the folder that Karen had completely forgotten about. The folder that contained Karen's own signature. The folder that would destroy her in exactly 37 seconds. Karen had just made the biggest mistake of her life, and she had no idea that Judge Judy was holding the nuclear weapon that would obliterate her argument completely. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. What happened next would become the most savage courtroom takedown in television history, a moment so brutal and so perfectly executed that it would be replayed millions of times across every social media platform. Karen thought she was clever. She thought she had found the perfect escape route from a case that was going badly for her. She thought challenging Judge Judy's authority would somehow save her from the consequences of her own actions. But what Karen didn't know was that Judge Judy had been waiting 25 years for someone exactly like her to walk into that courtroom. The document in Judge Judy's hands wasn't just any piece of paper. It was Karen's signed death warrant, her own handwriting condemning her, her own signature sealing her fate. Judge Judy had seen thousands of defendants try to weasel out of responsibility, but none had ever been stupid enough to directly challenge the legitimacy of the court, after voluntarily signing away their right to do exactly that. The irony was so perfect, so deliciously satisfying, that even Judge Judy's usually stern expression cracked into the slightest hint of a predatory smile. Karen's confident smirk was about to be wiped off her face in the most humiliating way possible. Because while she was busy running her mouth about fairness and trust, Judge Judy was preparing to read back Karen's own words, her own promises, her own legal commitments that made her current tantrum not just embarrassing, but legally meaningless. This wasn't going to be just another Judge Judy case. This was about to become a masterclass in why you never, ever challenge someone who holds all the cards, especially when those cards include your own signature proving you're a hypocrite. The audience sensed something big was coming. The camera operators instinctively tightened their shots. Even the bailiff straightened up, knowing that Judge Judy was about to unleash something special. Because what was about to unfold wouldn't just be a legal victory, it would be a complete and total annihilation of everything Karen thought she knew about gaming the system. Judge Judy was about to prove that in her courtroom, your own words will always come back to haunt you, and there's no escape from the consequences of your own choices. Before we dive into this incredible courtroom destruction, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss these amazing Judge Judy moments. Seriously, you won't want to miss what happens next because this is about to get absolutely savage. Now, to understand just how spectacularly Karen was about to destroy herself, you need to know exactly who she was and how she ended up in Judge Judy's crosshairs. Karen Melissa Henderson, a 43-year-old real estate agent from suburban Phoenix, had built her entire adult life around one simple principle: rules were for other people. She was the kind of person who demanded to speak to managers at restaurants when her food took more than 10 minutes. She was the woman who parked in handicapped spaces because she was only going to be a minute. She was the customer who returned items to stores after using them for months, armed with manufactured outrage and threats to leave bad reviews. Karen's journey to Judge Judy's courtroom began with what she thought would be an easy payday. She had rented a vacation property in Scottsdale for a long weekend, a beautiful desert home with a pool and mountain views that cost her $4,000 for 3 nights. But Karen being Karen, she wasn't satisfied with simply enjoying her expensive rental. She wanted more. She wanted revenge for what she called the worst vacation experience of her life, though the problems she complained about ranged from the absurd to the completely fabricated. According to Karen's lawsuit, the property was uninhabitable due to a broken air conditioning unit, dirty pool water, and what she dramatically called severe emotional distress from false advertising. She demanded a full refund plus an additional $5,000 in damages for her ruined vacation and mental anguish. The property owner, a retired teacher named Margaret Chen, was baffled by the claims. Her security cameras showed Karen and her family enjoying the pool daily, hosting barbecues, and never once contacting the management company about any problems during their stay. What made Karen's case particularly ridiculous was her timing. She had waited nearly 6 months after her vacation to file any complaints, conveniently right after she maxed out her credit cards and desperately needed money. Her social media posts from the weekend in question told a completely different story than her lawsuit. Instagram photos showed her family having the time of their lives with captions like, "Best vacation ever," and "This place is paradise." But Karen had conveniently forgotten about those posts when she decided to pursue her fraudulent claims. Karen's strategy was classic predatory litigation. She knew that most people would rather settle than fight, especially when faced with her nuclear option of public humiliation through online reviews and social media campaigns. She had successfully bullied 3 other small business owners into settlements using the same tactics over the previous 2 years. A restaurant had paid her $800 after she claimed food poisoning. A dry cleaner had given her $500 after she alleged they ruined her dress. A car repair shop had refunded her entire bill after she threatened to destroy their online reputation. But Margaret Chen was different. As a retired educator who had dealt with difficult parents and entitled students for 30 years, she wasn't intimidated by Karen's threats and tantrums. When Karen's demands escalated and her social media attacks began, Margaret decided to fight back. She gathered security footage, text messages, social media posts, and maintenance records that proved Karen was lying about every single claim. Margaret's case was airtight, and she was confident that any reasonable judge would see through Karen's obvious fraud. That's when Karen made her fatal mistake. Instead of quietly dropping her bogus lawsuit, she doubled down and demanded they take the case to Judge Judy. In Karen's mind, this was brilliant strategy. She believed that television courts were just entertainment, that judges on TV shows were just actors playing roles, and that she could use her well-practiced victim routine to manipulate the proceedings in her favor. She thought she could turn on the tears, play the wronged customer, and walk away with a settlement, plus the appearance fee for being on television. Karen spent weeks preparing for what she saw as her television debut. She practiced her sob story in the mirror, rehearsed her indignant speeches about customer rights, and even bought a new outfit that she thought would make her look more sympathetic. She researched Judge Judy online but focused only on clips that showed the judge being compassionate to plaintiffs. She completely ignored the hundreds of videos showing Judge Judy destroying liars and fraudsters with ruthless efficiency. What Karen failed to understand was that Judge Judy wasn't just a television personality. She was a real judge with real legal authority, who had spent decades perfecting her ability to spot liars, manipulators, and scam artists from across a courtroom. Judge Judy had seen every trick, heard every sob story, and developed an almost supernatural ability to cut through deception and get to the truth. Karen thought she was walking into a television studio. She was actually walking into the legal equivalent of a lion's den, and she was about to become the main course. What Karen didn't realize as she strutted into that courtroom was that she was about to face a legal predator who had been hunting people exactly like her for over 4 decades. Judge Judy Scheindlin wasn't just some television personality playing dress-up in judicial robes. She was a former family court judge in Manhattan who had presided over more than 20,000 real cases before ever stepping foot in front of a camera. She had dealt with every type of liar, scammer, deadbeat, and manipulator that New York City could produce. And she had developed an almost supernatural ability to detect deception within seconds of someone opening their mouth. Judge Judy's reputation in legal circles was legendary long before she became a television icon. During her 15 years on the bench in family court, she was known as the judge who could see through any sob story, crack any facade, and get to the truth faster than a polygraph machine. Defense attorneys dreaded appearing in her courtroom because they knew their clients' lies would be exposed before they finished their opening statements. She had a conviction rate that was the envy of prosecutors throughout the city, not because she was unfair, but because she was impossible to fool. The transition to television hadn't softened Judge Judy one bit. If anything, it had sharpened her skills to a razor's edge. Over 25 years of her TV show, she had presided over more than 12,000 cases, dealing with every conceivable type of human drama and deception. She had seen landlords trying to steal deposits, employers cheating workers, family members suing each other over petty disputes, and countless fraudsters like Karen trying to game the system for easy money. Each case had added another layer to her already formidable ability to spot lies and cut through. Manipulation. What made Judge Judy particularly dangerous to someone like Karen was her complete immunity to emotional manipulation. Years of dealing with crying defendants, sobbing plaintiffs, and theatrical performances had made her completely resistant to fake tears and manufactured outrage. She could distinguish between genuine emotion and calculated performance with the precision of a surgeon. And she took personal offense when people tried to manipulate her court with obvious lies and theatrical displays. Judge Judy's preparation for each case was meticulous and thorough. Every document was read, every piece of evidence was analyzed, and every inconsistency was noted before she ever entered the courtroom. Her staff knew that she demanded complete briefings on every case, including background checks on the litigants and detailed analysis of all submitted evidence. She had a team of experienced researchers who could verify claims, check social media accounts, and uncover contradictions that most courts would never bother to investigate. The judge also had an encyclopedic knowledge of contract law, property law, and civil procedure that came from decades of actual legal practice. Unlike many television judges who relied on producers and legal advisors, Judge Judy made her own decisions based on her own legal expertise. She could recite relevant statutes from memory, explain complex legal principles in simple terms, and apply the law with precision that would impress any appellate court. This wasn't entertainment masquerading as law. This was real law delivered with entertainment value. What truly terrified experienced attorneys about facing Judge Judy was her complete intolerance for wasting her time. She had no patience for long-winded speeches, irrelevant testimony, or obvious lies. If you came into her courtroom unprepared, dishonest, or disrespectful, she would destroy you publicly and efficiently. She had perfected the art of judicial humiliation, using her sharp wit and encyclopedic legal knowledge to make fraudsters and liars look like complete fools in front of millions of viewers. Karen had chosen to challenge not just a television judge, but a legal institution, someone who had been perfecting her craft since before Karen was born, who had dealt with thousands of people trying the exact same scams that Karen thought were original, and who had developed a particular hatred for entitled people who thought they could manipulate the legal system for personal gain. Judge Judy had been waiting her entire career for someone exactly like Karen to walk into her courtroom and hand her the perfect opportunity to deliver a lesson in accountability that would be remembered for decades. The case had been proceeding exactly as Judge Judy expected for the first 20 minutes. Karen was spinning her rehearsed sob story about the nightmare vacation rental, complete with dramatic pauses and calculated tears that fooled absolutely no one in the courtroom. Margaret Chen, the property owner, was calmly presenting her evidence. Security footage, maintenance records, and screenshots of Karen's own social media posts showing her family having a wonderful time. Judge Judy was methodically dismantling Karen's claims one by one, pointing out the obvious contradictions between her lawsuit and the actual evidence. That's when Karen realized she was losing badly, and her carefully constructed facade began to crack. The fake tears dried up instantly, replaced by the kind of cold fury that comes from someone who isn't used to being held accountable for their lies. She had expected Judge Judy to be sympathetic to her customer service complaints and outraged by her allegations of false advertising. Instead, the judge was treating her claims with the skepticism they deserved, and Karen could see her fraudulent payday slipping away with each passing minute. Karen's first desperate move was to interrupt Judge Judy mid-sentence, something that veteran court watchers knew was the equivalent of poking a sleeping dragon with a sharp stick. "Your Honor, excuse me, but I don't think you're listening to what I'm saying," Karen declared with the kind of indignant tone she usually reserved for teenage cashiers and restaurant servers. The courtroom fell silent as everyone present realized that Karen had just made a catastrophic error in judgment. Judge Judy's expression shifted from professional skepticism to icy disdain in a fraction of a second. But Karen wasn't finished digging her own grave. Emboldened by what she mistakenly interpreted as Judge Judy's surprised silence, she decided to escalate her attack with the kind of entitled fury that had intimidated countless service workers and small business owners throughout her adult life. "I came here expecting a fair hearing, but it's obvious that you've already made up your mind," Karen continued, her voice rising with each word. "I don't think this court is capable of giving someone like me a fair shake, and I'm starting to question whether this whole process is legitimate." The audience gasped audibly. Even people who had never watched Judge Judy before understood that Karen had just crossed a line that should never be crossed. Challenging a judge's fairness was bad enough, but questioning the legitimacy of the court itself was tantamount to legal suicide. Margaret Chen looked absolutely stunned that her opponent was self-destructing so spectacularly. The camera operators instinctively zoomed in on Judge Judy's face, knowing that they were about to capture television gold. Karen, completely misreading the room and Judge Judy's dangerous silence, decided to deliver what she thought would be her knockout punch. Standing up from her chair with theatrical indignation, she pointed directly at Judge Judy and declared with all the self-righteous fury she could muster, "Your Honor, I don't trust this court or your ability to be fair to someone like me. I think this whole thing is rigged, and I want to file a formal complaint about how this case is being handled." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Karen had just committed the ultimate act of courtroom disrespect, directly challenging Judge Judy's integrity and judicial authority in front of millions of viewers. The silence that followed was so complete that the only sound was the barely audible hum of the television cameras. Even the bailiff, who had seen thousands of defendants make terrible decisions, looked shocked by Karen's spectacular display of stupidity. Judge Judy's response was terrifyingly calm. She didn't raise her voice, didn't show anger, didn't even change her expression. Instead, she simply reached for the manila folder that had been sitting in front of her throughout the entire proceedings. The folder that Karen had completely forgotten about. The folder that contained the documents that would destroy her more thoroughly than any legal argument ever could. Judge Judy opened the folder with deliberate slowness, like an executioner preparing to drop the axe. And for the first time since her outburst began, Karen felt the first flicker of doubt about the wisdom of her strategy. Judge Judy's voice cut through the silence like a scalpel, calm and deadly precise. Well, Karen, since you don't trust this court and question its legitimacy, let me read you something very interesting. She lifted a document from the folder with theatrical slowness, holding it up so the cameras could clearly see Karen's signature at the bottom. This is your signed arbitration agreement, Karen. Your signature. Your handwriting. Your sworn statement. Karen's confident smirk began to falter as Judge Judy continued. Let me read exactly what you agreed to when you voluntarily chose to bring this case to my courtroom. Judge Judy's reading voice took on the tone of a prosecutor delivering closing arguments. I, Karen Melissa Henderson, voluntarily agree to submit my dispute to binding arbitration before Judge Judith Scheindlin. I understand that Judge Scheindlin has complete authority over this proceeding, and that her decision is final and legally binding. The color drained from Karen's face as Judge Judy flipped to the next page. But wait, there's more, Karen. You also signed this beautiful paragraph right here. She held up the document pointing directly at Karen's signature. I acknowledge that I am voluntarily participating in this arbitration process, and that I trust Judge Scheindlin to render a fair and impartial decision based on the evidence presented. I waive any right to challenge the legitimacy or fairness of this proceeding. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Judge Judy wasn't finished. So let me understand this correctly, Karen. You signed a document stating that you trust me to be fair and impartial. You waived your right to challenge this court's legitimacy. You voluntarily submitted to my authority. And now when my decision isn't going your way, you want to claim this court is unfair and illegitimate? The judge leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more authority than shouting. You can't have it both ways, Karen. You can't sign a contract when you think it benefits you and then try to void it when reality doesn't match your expectations. That's not how contracts work. That's not how courts work. And that's certainly not how my courtroom works. Karen attempted to stammer a response, but Judge Judy held up her hand. I'm not finished. Your case is dismissed with prejudice. You owe the defendant her appearance fee, and you owe this court an apology for wasting everyone's time with your fraudulent claims and theatrical tantrum. If you're loving this courtroom destruction, smash that like button and let us know in the comments what you think about Karen's strategy. Don't forget to subscribe because Judge Judy moments like this are pure gold. The courtroom erupted in whispers as Karen stood frozen, completely humiliated. Her lawyer buried his face in his hands. Margaret Chen smiled for the first time in months, finally vindicated. Within hours, the clip exploded across social media with millions of views. Karen had become the poster child for entitled behavior backfiring spectacularly. Judge Judy had delivered another masterclass in accountability, proving once again why challenging her authority is career suicide. The beauty of Judge Judy's destruction of Karen wasn't just in the legal precision of her response, but in the perfect poetic justice of the moment. Karen had spent her entire adult life manipulating systems, bullying service workers, and gaming situations to her advantage. She thought she had found the ultimate loophole by challenging the court's legitimacy when things didn't go her way. Instead, she had walked directly into a trap of her own making, sealed by her own signature and witnessed by millions of viewers. What made this moment so satisfying wasn't just watching a fraudster get exposed, but seeing someone face the consequences of their own choices in real time. Karen's signed arbitration agreement wasn't some fine print buried in legal documents. It was a clear, straightforward contract that she had read, understood, and willingly signed because she thought it would benefit her. The moment it became inconvenient, she tried to pretend it didn't exist. Judge Judy's response demonstrated why she has remained a legal and cultural icon for decades. She didn't need to raise her voice, insult Karen personally, or resort to theatrics. She simply used the law, Karen's own words, and basic logic to expose the fundamental dishonesty of trying to escape accountability through manufactured outrage. It was a masterclass in how preparation, knowledge, and integrity will always triumph over entitlement and deception. This case became a viral sensation because it represented something people see every day but rarely see consequences for. The entitled customer demanding special treatment. The person who thinks rules don't apply to them. The individual who tries to manipulate their way out of responsibility. Judge Judy gave millions of viewers the satisfaction of watching that behavior backfire spectacularly. Karen learned the hard way that contracts have meaning, that courts have authority, and that trying to game the system usually results in the system gaming you right back. Her attempt to intimidate Judge Judy not only failed completely, but created a permanent record of her dishonesty that will follow her forever. If you enjoyed this incredible courtroom showdown, make sure to like this video and subscribe to never miss these amazing Judge Judy moments. What did you think about Karen's strategy of challenging the court after signing a contract? Let us know in the comments below. Hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when we drop our next explosive courtroom story. This story proves that in Judge Judy's courtroom, your signature means everything, and trying to escape consequences through manufactured outrage will only make your humiliation more complete. Judge Judy didn't just defeat Karen that day, she showed the entire world what real accountability looks like when entitlement meets the law.